crossover, issue number 10. Just when I thought I was out, this book finds a way to pull me back in. I have been very mixed on this book from the beginning. I think the concept is fun. It is very much a love letter to the industry, the creators, both old and new. And the metatextual narrative, I think, could only be presented in this format. You know, if this were a TV show, it doesn't work. If this were a novel, it doesn't work. It only works because it's a comic book, and that's what makes it special. It's kind of like just our niche little thing that we can talk about and reference to, and it's very fun. So I have been hit or miss on this book. The past couple issues, I think, present some cool stuff. I think they peaked with meta when they did the Chip Zdarsky story, but I gotta say, Cates pulled me back in. I think he knew exactly what he was doing, setting up his own narrative for this story, and it worked really well. I think it's just very impressive, and there's some stuff in the middle of this book I'm very curious to explore. So it opens up, and we see like some crumpled up paper, literally showing like somebody writing this issue. It's like issue 10, it's like panel 1, we open up on this, there's some notes about it. Then we see kind of like the machination of Pembleton being kind of dragged into this world, and he just starts to be revealed, and it opens up this like narration, just like, because we are comic books, we can be retconned and canceled and replaced and erased, but we always come back. But because we're human, we can't. We die. We end. And we see some bearded, mysterious figure say, "Wake up," and we just open it up to see Pembleton in his house, and he's just looking, his wife's still dead. It's like some tragic backstory for him. His son is just there like, how come mommy doesn't come back? All these other people have people come back because they're superheroes. Why doesn't our mommy come back? It's like, well, it's because they're not real. And it's like, we are, but we see as he's saying, we are real, the notes of like, you know, the person typing up the little paper there with the panel and what it's going to say. It's brilliant. And it's perfectly exactly what this narrative needs it to be. I think it works really well. So Pembleton heads over to his job. We see what I'm going to assume is a dead Celestial. They don't explicitly say. They're just like, okay, well, this big guy crashed through. We're seeing that the dome is expanding slowly and slowly, making it almost weaker where it's penetrable and people can come inside now. Very interesting stuff. Then we see it's the anniversary of his wife, but she's dead. So he's talking to this guy, and he's just like, "Sir, I didn't mean anything by that, but I need you to come check out this thing we have with the Powers people." He calls him Mitch, and he's like, "Your name's Mitch, right?" He's like, "No, it's actually Tom." I wonder if that is a reference to Tom King and Mitch Gerrits. I'd have to imagine it might be. You know, it looks neither like them, so it could just be like a amalgamation of putting them both into one person. It's just fun. So Pembleton's walking down, and he's just like, there's a lot of weird stuff going on here. And he's talking to this Tom guy. They're like, well, they got Bendis locked up, so they have to figure out like what they're going to do to talk to Bendis. But then we just see Pembleton is just talking like, I don't understand why everyone's coming back to this Ulysses girl. Like, she's not a part of a comic book story. She's never really been in anything before. She's certainly not supposed to be dictating the events of this story, like the one we're in right now. No, she's not. Like, dude, what you talking about? Like this story? What story? He's like, honestly, I don't know what story we're in. So there is some self-awareness to Pembleton where he's kind of just like, okay, there's something going on here I don't really understand. So then he just kind of like takes a little bit of like a backseat turn, and we get like a few middle pages dedicated to the return of Brian Michael Bendis and Mike Oeming doing the Powers stuff. So the Powers team is back. They are drawing and writing the Powers stuff, and the team is interviewing Brian Michael Bendis, and he's just freaking out like, this is a good cosplay, but what's really going on here? I'm so confused. And when he finds out that comic book authors are being murdered, he starts to be like, oh no, they killed Zdarsky. Oh no, they killed Brian K. Vaughan. Oh no, they killed Scott Snyder. No reaction. I'm like, that's okay, that's kind of funny. Not much of anything, but he's just kind of like, oh no, this is bad. Everything I ever written's going to come haunt me now. All this bad stuff I made this girl do. What's going to happen? Is Jessica here? Is Jessica going to freak out and yell at me? I think it's kind of a funnier narrative knowing that it was, you know, Bendis that wrote this. I know some people have their reservations of Bendis as of late. But when he wants to do it, man, he still got it. He can still, you know, pull the punches and do the right thing there. It's very cool to see what he does. But he's kind of like, look, I'm only literally one half of what made you. Like, there's somebody else who did this, like a good friend of mine. If you want to yell at anybody, you should yell at Mike Oeming. So they get Mike Oeming in here, and he's just like, wow, this is cool. I want to draw this scene. So he's just looking around like, can I draw this? It's like them. Look, Brian, it's them. It's the guys we made. It's funny. And it's just perfectly funny. And when you're doing this stuff, I love just like having known creators in the comic industry be these kind of people that do this stuff. It's just really fun. So they're just trying to like, okay, if you're not the people writing and drawing this scene that we're in right now, if everything we say is like pre-written and we're part of one big narrative, then there's got to be something else going on at play here that's controlling and telling our story. So like, what's really going on in our narrative right now? And we don't really see what anyone's thinking. They're like, there's got to be somebody. What kind of egotistical hack would write such a big story? Would write that so somebody could steal our shit and like put it in their own story? And you see, they're just kind of thinking, and then Mike Omen's like, oh, I know who. He's like, I bet it's this. And he's like, what? We don't see who he's thinking, but we cut back to Pembleton. He's like storming through the office. He's like, everyone out of my way. I got to go to sub-level Omega. He's going down to the bottom. He's going to like the deepest, darkest trenches of this organization. He's like, okay, who's going to be behind this big door? We're like, there's somebody in here who we know is crazy. It's probably this bearded person we've been thinking out for so long. And this is where I just go, you have to play this the right way, or else it's going to come across as arrogant and hackish. And again, that's the whole premise of this book. Like, who is egotistical enough to put themselves into their own story? Well, when you are writing a narrative about your own comic creations, and you are creating a book where the characters are self-aware enough, and you're putting your friends and cohorts into the book yourself, who could do that? We had some bearded person that we don't really know, some mysterious person who's locked up. My first reaction was, oh, it's probably going to be like some play on Alan Moore, on, Jack Kirby, on like legendary people in this industry that would just bullshit their way through this kind of meta story. I didn't really have any inclination to think it was Donny Cates, but it's Donny Cates. We see that the mysterious person in the deepest trenches of this universe in this sub-basement is actually Donny Cates. We see him literally typing up the pages and drawing the pages to what the story is going on. We see scribbles of him and his wife in the background, and I'm like, dude, you could play this one way or the other, but I gotta commend you for making it work. You didn't explicitly, go out and make yourself like the god character complex that I know other creators would. We're not going to say who they are, but they do that to themselves. I just love the humility of Bendis and Oming being just like, yeah, who's writing our story? I don't like this. And just Kate's being like, I'm arrogant hack enough to be like, yeah, this is me. I'm writing my own story, and I'm putting myself in as like the one controlling all the strings. Because yes, if we're looking at this strictly as there is a comic book that all these people are now comic book characters in a comic book, it is Cates. But if you're looking at it like they all think they're part of a story and the person writing the story is Donny Cates, then yeah, it works on two levels, and that makes sense to me. So seeing a disgusting Cates just be like, are you really egotistical enough to write yourself into your own story, ending with the ... It's smart. It's brilliant, and I was kind of hesitant with this book, just like, yeah, okay. But look, you got the Powers team coming back together for a funny, self-aware scene. You were literally building up an entirely fun meta-narrative that only works for the comic book industry and the people who love this industry. I gotta commend him for that, and I gotta respect. Like, I am always hesitant when it comes to, like the self-aware thing. Because I have my ideas for self-aware too. I would not be opposed to putting myself into my own book I wrote, but I do like this. I think it works very well. It is very strong and has some really interesting beats to it. So I got to commend him for that. You took a chance. You took the swing. It's working. It's paying off. And this issue of Crossover was really fun and interesting. Good job, dude. Like, you sold it. You made this weird story work, and it's continuing to impress. Sometimes it's a hit, sometimes a miss, but this time around you did all the right notes and it worked really well. So Crossover, issue number 10, I am going to give an 8 out of 10. Now, thank you guys for watching this review. Be sure to like and subscribe to the channel. As always, you can check me out on Instagram, TikTok, and Twitter. And I will catch you in the next one. Have fun, stay safe, good luck.